Hi there. In a world where nothing is certain, that means anything is possible, right? If you want to fulfill your dreams and desires, you are in the right place. You absolutely can have a life of happiness. Everyone deserves an abundance of love, laughter, success, health, and wealth. I'm Tara Chadzakis, and you're listening to the Happy, Inspired, Motivated podcast. The show that brings you meditation, mindset, and motivation. So start by giving yourself permission to be awesome. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Hi, and welcome to this episode of Happy, Inspired, Motivated. Now, today is a very special episode because it's my my first ever podcast birthday. And I am so excited that a year ago today, the 25th of June, I released my first podcast. And so much has changed since I started. When I started out, I was very nervous and I created some solo episodes, some interviews and some meditations, which I'm still doing across the board. I don't do as many meditations as I used to do, which is a real shame. I just find I have less time to be able to do those. And I apologize if you love those meditations. But I have actually made a compilation of them that you can buy if you wish through the link on my website. But I have found so much has changed in my business since I started this podcast. And podcast has meant so much to me. And when I first started, I never could imagine the impact that it's had in my life and on my business too. So podcasting for me has been such a great pleasure because it's given me the chance to meet new people, which is something that I absolutely love and adore. I love when I find somebody new, getting to know them, talking to them and hearing their story, finding out about them and seeing what motivates them and what drives them to do what they do. And I've been able to do that on my podcast. As I really feel blessed that I've been given this platform to be able to reach out and have people reach out to me and actually say, Tara, can I be a guest on your show? Which is absolutely phenomenal because I'm based on the Isle of Wight and it's only a small island. But my reach has been absolutely mind-blowing because it's global. My podcast is in the top 10% of all global podcasts. I have been listened to in so many different countries and countries that I wouldn't have even thought that I would have reached. Like, I don't know, Trinidad and Tobago and the Philippines and the US and all sorts of different places. And my guests have been a real big part of my podcast success because it's because of them and their story and how open they are to sharing their knowledge and their background that has made my podcast so popular and, as I say, such a great success. I believe that my podcast has helped open up a huge network for me. So it's not just about the ratings or the rankings, but it's also about the people that I get to interact with, the people that I get to meet. And some of these people, I even call these people my friends because we've shared so much together, even in such a short period of time. And we've kept in contact and we talk to each other and we share each other's things on social media because we have that bond and that connection. And that's really important. One of the great sayings is that your network is your net worth. And that is so true. And I have been blessed to interact with or have chats with some amazing people. And these are everyday people who are up and coming businesses. They are people who are multimillionaires, people who I wouldn't necessarily have had the opportunity to meet from my bedroom on the Isle of Wight. It's just phenomenal, the reach that I've been able to have and hopefully the impact that I've had as well, because I think it's really important that when I started my podcast, my aim was to reach people who were starting out as entrepreneurs, people who wanted inspiration, who needed motivation to keep going and to not give up on their dreams, to keep chasing their dreams, to keep going for gold. Because sometimes when you start your business, it can be quite soul destroying in the beginning when you're overwhelmed and you don't know what to do. And my guests are just living proof that if you keep going and you never quit, then you're going to make a success. And it is easy to give up. It is easy to go back to the 9 to 5 when you're feeling insecure or overwhelmed or you're not seeing the results that you want. But, each and every one of my guests have always said, if you don't quit, you can't fail. And that is such an important lesson to learn as an entrepreneur and in life. And I feel blessed that I've been able to bring that message to people all over the world. And I'm hoping that my podcast has a huge ripple effect and that the impact that we have as a community on the listener reaches out from them and it impacts people that they know. Because when you are motivated and inspired and feel happy, that has an effect on the people around you, and you behave differently and react differently, and you give out a different energy into the universe. And that is so important. And that is why I created this podcast. And that is the impact and the ripple effect that I want to have all over the world. I want people to share my show and not just share it because of the great knowledge that they might get from it, but to share it because they feel happy, inspired, and motivated. I want my podcast to do what it says on the tin. And I really hope that it has that kind of impact for you as a listener. Now, because it's my 1-year birthday as a podcast host, I have reached out to some of my past guests and I have asked them to give me a small snippet, a small testimonial as to how they found being a guest on my podcast, the things that they have gained from being a podcast guest for me. And some of my favorite podcast guests have actually given me the most amazing audio reviews, which I have compiled into this episode. So I'm going to play them for you. They're short snippets, and it's great for me to hear the feedback that people have about my show and how they have found me as a podcast host. Because when you're starting out and you're brand new, you never quite know how it's going to go, and you don't know whether people are actually enjoying your interview. Well, I guess when you're interviewing them, you can see you have laughter, you enjoy it. But it's really nice to hear the beautiful words that people have said about me and my podcast. And I wanted to share them because this is my birthday episode, and I'm bringing it to you on the actual birthday, which is a sign from the universe that this episode was meant to go out like a year ago. My first episode was the 25th of June, and it's 25th of June again today, which is the day I'm releasing my podcast. So I hope you enjoy these short snippets from some of my past guests. I love them all very dearly. They are amazing people. And as I said, some of them have become my friends, which is great because it's increased the amount of happy people and inspired people and motivated people that I have in my life. And that's made a great impact on me and my business and me as a person, because they're helping me to grow, they're helping me to be a better person, and they are inspiring me to keep going and leveling up too. Let's get straight into it.
Hey there, my name's Anna Parker-Naples and I'm host of Entrepreneurs Get Visible podcast. I was interviewed by Tara when her podcast was still fairly new, and it was really exciting because I'd actually helped Tara to get her podcast launched inside as a member of the podcast membership. And what I love about what she's doing with Happy, Inspired, Motivated is that she's bringing that energy to the table. You can literally hear it in everything that she does with her show. And for me, podcasts have had a massive impact on my business. Not only do I help people to launch their own podcasts, very often chart-topping shows across the world, either with the podcast membership or with a more bespoke consultancy service and production service in the podcast agency. But podcast has meant for me that I've been able to connect with high-level entrepreneurs and leaders all around the world, pretty much from my cupboard at home. It's enabled me to reach tens, if not hundreds of thousands of people with my own podcast. And that for me means that I can have that ripple effect across the world. So if you are here today listening to Tara's Happy, Inspired, Motivated podcast, I would just love you to take a moment to go and give her a review, give it a like, share it with someone who needs to hear the message that she's sharing, because I think that is how podcasts can help us have that ripple effect across the world. Share this show with someone who needs to hear it.
Hey, this is Danny Matthews from Danny & Co. Brand and Design Studio. I loved talking with Tara. Apart from the fact that I got to talk about myself for a bit, which I think we all like every now and again, Tara asked me some really good questions and clearly has a natural kind of curiosity to find those bits of information that she knows her audience want and need. I've been a guest on probably dozens of podcasts at this point in the last year, including launching my own. And it's made a huge contribution to my public profile, my brand awareness. And I always find that I learn a ton from the conversations, whether I'm a host or a guest. So at Danny & Co, we believe in optimism as a superpower. So you'd be silly not to listen to a podcast called Happy, Inspired, Motivated, because what's the alternative? So go get some happiness in your life. And thanks again, Tara, for having me. Happy anniversary. It's a great milestone.
This is Deanna Hins, sassy girl entrepreneur. Tara, first off, I absolutely adore you. I am so grateful that our paths crossed and we have now started this great journey of being friends. Thank you so much for having me on your show. First off, just talking to you, it's so easy. Your energy is contagious. I mean, you're so uplifting and positive, and I love laughing. Laughing is probably one of the favorite things that I do, but we got to laugh and just have a really good time every time we talk, actually. People should absolutely listen to Happy, Inspired, Motivated podcast. You drop so many great nuggets, and your guests also drop so many great nuggets. I mean, there is something in your podcast for everybody. It doesn't matter what you're doing, where you are in life, what your obstacle is or struggle is. You offer so many different people in so many different situations that it really is a podcast that everybody can use. You know, I do listen to podcasts and I enjoy them. I just recently started listening to them, and I find that they're just a great tool to helping me create my best life, right? I take away so many different things. And I love that about yours. I mean, the uniqueness, and if you're talking about anxiety or fitness or confidence or starting a business or transitioning in your business, you name it, you can find something for whatever I'm looking for on your podcast. Anyhow, Tara, thank you so much for having me on, for connecting with me, for being on my podcast, and happy anniversary. Woohoo! Love you, girl.
Hi, my name's Adam Harrison and my company is Dr. Adam Harrison Coaching. I'm a life, career, leadership and executive coach who works with organizations with challenging leadership. I really enjoyed my podcast interview with Tara. It was an absolute pleasure to do. She was very lovely and friendly, so she was easy to talk to. It was like talking to an old friend. It felt very comfortable. Conversation definitely flowed. I had fun. If somebody asked me whether they should listen to the Happy, Inspired, Motivated podcast, I would say absolutely yes, 100% yes. You know, well, I'm on it for a start, so that's always a bonus. Just joking. I actually came across Tara's work when I listened to her interviewing Lisa Johnson, and that was a brilliant podcast. That was very, very inspiring and motivating. So there are lots of interesting people talking about really relevant things and practical ways to help people in their lives in general and in their working lives. And I just think Tara fulfills a very essential role in bringing that information out to the public. So thank you for having me on as a guest. I'll always be grateful for that. And thanks for bringing everyone else on to educate the rest of us. And just keep doing what you're doing. It's absolutely brilliant. Cheers. Bye-bye.
This is Kim Langling. I am an author, freelance writer, public speaker, and podcast host of Let Fear Bounce. I was a guest with Tara on Happy, Inspired, and Motivated podcast recently, and I absolutely enjoyed my time with her. As a host, she makes you feel so comfortable, and it feels like you're just sitting across from each other in a coffee shop, having a cup of coffee and chatting like old friends. I would recommend her podcast to anyone, actually. Being on her podcast and having my own podcast, I have found that for me, it's given me a boost in confidence. I've been able to have a much farther reach, worldwide reach, and I've met amazing people, absolutely amazing people, and it's helping for me to grow my brand. And if I'm able to help someone else grow theirs by being a guest or having them as a guest on my show, I am all for it. I can't say enough about Tara's show. So kudos to Tara for 1 year of being a podcast host. Absolutely wonderful. Congratulations.
Hi, it's Beth at Positive Pantry. I was recently a guest on the lovely Tara's podcast, Happy, Inspired, Motivated, and I am now all of those things. So what did I enjoy? I loved being a guest on Tara's podcast. It's the first one that I've done. I am still in my full-time employment, but over the course of this year have really explored the option of what I enjoy and potentially doing something for me later in life. So Tara reached out as her first guest, who's still in her 9-to-5 and, looking to sort of explore what coming out of that would include. And it was just so easy. She put me at rest immediately, and it was just a lovely conversation with a lovely person, and I left feeling so inspired and motivated to sort of really chase my dream. But I loved the format. I loved knowing what else I was listening to, and I loved that I knew whoever else was going to be on this podcast was going to be in the same pool of people with the same interests. And I immediately went back through the podcast after being on it. And I've listened to almost everything now. And I've really enjoyed it. Tara is so chatty. She's super inspirational. And I would really recommend this podcast. The impact it's had on my business isn't a business yet, but it absolutely will be one day once I've figured out what that is and what direction I want that, what I want direction it to take. I think when I do that, I will be calling Tara for help. I think Tara gives off something that is really trustworthy. I feel so safe in her hands all the time. And I feel like if I needed advice, then I could call her quite happily. She is a fellow Northern soul, so I know that she would be at the other end of the phone. I feel like listening to podcasts as a group is listening to real people with real stories. This isn't just listening to the radio. It isn't just listening to or reading about people in the other side of the world and really feel like they're the other side of the world and their situations the other side of the world to yours. Podcasts bring a certain amount of real talk to your life, which is so inspirational, and it makes you think, that could be me. this person who's sat on here is super normal. They've lived the same life that I've lived. They're not, more privileged than me. They've come ground up, and that means that I could be that. And that's where I feel like that story will be mine. And then here I am, a guest on somebody's podcast telling my story. So it's really clear that it does come full circle. And that in itself is really inspiring and motivating. I cannot recommend this podcast enough. Tara's such a down-to-earth, as I said, northern soul, good northern stock. And listening to somebody with a bit of honesty and a bit of, down-to-earth, salt-of-the-earth sort of voice, telling it how it is, can be so refreshing. And that is why I trust Tara. That is why I believe what she's saying. And that's why I believe that she wouldn't, beat around the bush. She'll tell me what I want to hear, but help me channel all of that in the right direction to create a really positive business. And I really, really cannot stress that enough. I would recommend and can easily recommend this podcast. I listen to these when I'm out on a run, or if, out on our one exercise day or whatever, one exercise trip. So if you just want a bit of subliminal positivity running in the back chat, then this is definitely for you. I can't recommend enough. Thanks, Tara, and I hope to see you again.
It was so lovely to hear all those amazing people have such great words of support and love for me and my show. It's absolutely mind-blowing, as I said, that I have been blessed enough to interview these people and become friends with them. So thank you very much for listening to my very special birthday episode of Happy, Inspired, Motivated. If you enjoyed this show, or if you enjoy listening to the show generally, please subscribe, rate and review so we can reach more people with these fantastic, phenomenal stories. Also, I'd love you to connect with me over on Instagram. Drop me a message, say hi, tell me that you listen to the show. I would love to know how you find it, and come and celebrate my birthday with me. Thanks so much for being a part of my growth, my success, and thanks for being supportive and listening to the show. Sending you lots of love and blessings. I hope you have an absolutely phenomenal day. Take care. Thank you for listening to the Happy, Inspired, Motivated podcast. I'll be back next week bringing more meditation, mindset, and motivation for your happy and successful life. To find out more about our community, go to tarachatzakis.com/happy, inspired, motivated.